Before Wall Street, before skyscrapers and stock markets, there was the Silk Road, a network of dusty paths and desert caravans that stretched thousands of miles, from the palaces of China to the markets of Rome. It carried treasures beyond imagination, silk that shimmered like water, spices worth more than gold, glass and silver that crossed entire continents. But it wasn't just goods that moved. Ideas traveled, religions spread, and even deadly diseases rode along with the traders. This wasn't just trade. This was the world's first global economy, and it reshaped empires, changed cultures, and laid the foundations for the world we live in today. This is the untold story of the Silk Road. It all began more than 2,000 years ago, in China. During the Han Dynasty, emperors wanted something bigger than just power at home. They wanted connections. They wanted influence across the world. And at the heart of it all was silk. Silk wasn't just fabric. To the Romans, it was magic. Light, shimmering, soft as air, unlike anything they had ever seen. Wealthy Romans would pay the price of a soldier's yearly wage for a single robe of Chinese silk. And the Chinese knew it. They kept the secret of silk locked away. No one outside China knew how it was made. Smuggling a silkworm out of the empire? Punishable by death. So how did the silk travel west? Caravans. Endless caravans of traders crossing deserts, mountains, and hostile lands. From the city of Xi'an in China, merchants packed rolls of silk onto camels and began the long, dangerous journey across the Taklamakan Desert, through the snowy passes of Central Asia, into Persia, and finally, to the markets of Rome. Every empire along the way, Persians, Kushans, Parthians, taxed the traders, protected the routes, and took their share. And little by little, a simple trade in silk became a chain that tied together half the world. The Silk Road wasn't just born from fabric. It was born from demand, from desire, from a luxury so powerful. It connected East and West for the first time in history. When we say Silk Road, most people think of silk, but in reality, it was so much more. Imagine walking through a marketplace along the route. The air is thick with the smell of spices, cinnamon, pepper, and cloves, carried from India. Tables overflow with Persian carpets, glass from Rome, and ivory from Africa. Next to them, lapis lazuli gemstones from Afghanistan, glowing blue like pieces of the sky. It wasn't just goods. It was cultures meeting face to face. A Buddhist monk from India carrying scrolls eastward, spreading his faith into China. Muslim merchants from Arabia bringing not only goods, but also the Quran, mathematics, and astronomy. And from the West, ideas of art, philosophy, and even new technologies flowed back in the other direction. But here's the thing. Trade wasn't just about luxury. It was about survival, too. Horses from Central Asia were worth their weight in gold to Chinese armies. Paper and gunpowder, invented in China, slowly made their way west, changing warfare and knowledge forever. And sometimes, what traveled was darker. Diseases like the plague hitched a ride with the caravans, moving silently from one city to another. So yes, silk was the headline act. But the Silk Road was really a two-way street, a river of goods, ideas, and even dangers flowing between East and West. This wasn't just shopping, it was globalization. Before the word even existed, the Silk Road wasn't just a highway for merchants. It was the lifeline of empires. Take Rome. By the 1st century, Roman elites were obsessed with Chinese silk. Senators wore it at banquets. Noblewomen flaunted it at festivals. So much silver left Rome to pay for silk that some Roman politicians panicked. They begged the people to stop buying it, claiming it was draining the empire's wealth. But they couldn't stop it. The demand was too strong. Further east, empires like Persia and the Kushan dynasty grew rich by controlling the middle of the road. They taxed every caravan, guarded every pass, and built cities that thrived purely on trade. And then came the Mongols. In the 13th century, Genghis Khan's empire stretched from China to Europe. Under his grandson Kublai Khan, the Silk Road entered a golden age. For the first time in history, one empire controlled almost the entire route. Merchants could travel with unprecedented safety. A trader could leave Venice, cross Asia, and reach China, all under Mongol protection. That's when Marco Polo made his legendary journey, writing stories that amazed Europe. He described cities overflowing with wealth, markets full of spices and silk, and trade on a scale Europe had never seen. But it wasn't just wealth that mattered, it was power. Whoever controlled the Silk Road controlled the flow of money, ideas, and influence. The Byzantines fought to keep it open, the Islamic caliphates used it to spread their culture and commerce, and the Mongols used it as the backbone of their empire. The Silk Road wasn't just about trade, it was the currency of empires. It built cities, funded armies, and made kings and emperors richer than ever before. For all its wealth and wonders, the Silk Road had a darker side. The deserts were filled with bandits. Caravans carrying fortunes in silk and gold became moving targets. Entire convoys vanished, swallowed by raiders or lost in the sands. Merchants paid heavily for protection, to local warlords, to soldiers, even to corrupt officials who took their share before letting the goods pass. And it wasn't just human greed that threatened the road. The Silk Road carried invisible passengers, diseases. The most infamous was the Black Death. In the 14th century, plague traveled with traders from Central Asia into the Middle East and eventually into Europe. Within a few short years, it killed nearly a third of Europe's population. The same network that had connected the world with wealth also spread its deadliest disease. And as time went on, new problems emerged. Empires rose and fell. Each collapse made the road more dangerous. When the Mongol Empire fractured, the protection it offered disappeared. The once safe highways became unstable and violent. Then came the greatest challenge of all, the sea. By the 15th century, European explorers had found new maritime routes to Asia. Ships could carry more cargo, faster and safer than any caravan. The Silk Road, once the beating heart of global trade, began to fade. It didn't vanish overnight. Cities along the route clung to life. Merchants still traveled, but its glory days were over. What was left was a lesson: every network of wealth carries risk. The same road that spread silk and spices also spread bandits, corruption, and death. Even though the caravans stopped, the Silk Road never truly died. Its legacy lived on, in the very way our global economy works today. The Silk Road showed the world something revolutionary: that trade wasn't just local, that wealth could move across continents, that cultures could connect, not just through armies, but through markets. Paper money and early credit systems developed to make long-distance trade easier. Insurance, contracts, and banking families rose to manage the risks of dangerous journeys. The very tools we now associate with Wall Street and global finance were born from merchants trying to survive on the Silk Road. It wasn't just goods that traveled. Religions like Buddhism, Islam, and Christianity spread across continents. Technologies like papermaking and gunpowder reshaped entire civilizations. Even food, oranges, grapes, spices, found new homes far from their origins. And in many ways, the Silk Road was the prototype for globalization. Just like today's container ships and flight paths connect the world, caravans of camels once tied together China, India, the Middle East, and Europe. The Silk Road didn't just trade silk. It traded trust. It traded ideas. It traded the blueprint for the interconnected world we live in now. So when you think of today's global economy, the internet, shipping lanes, stock markets, remember this: it all started with a dusty road through deserts and mountains, and the merchants who dared to walk it. History remembers the warriors, the emperors, the kings who fought for power. But just as powerful were the merchants and caravans who carried silk and spices across the world. They didn't march with armies. They didn't conquer with swords. They connected empires with trade. The Silk Road wasn't just a route. It was the world's first global marketplace. It built wealth. It spread ideas. And it left behind the blueprint for the interconnected world we live in today. So here's my question to you. Do you think the Silk Road shaped history more through wealth or through the ideas and cultures it carried? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear your take. And if you want more hidden stories of how money built our world, don't forget to subscribe to Economic Chronicles. Because history isn't just about kings and battles. It's about the economics that shaped civilization.